Hi friends, my name is Haley Comet and welcome to my cosmic corner of the internet where we discuss all things astrology, and today, Saturn. So Saturn has entered the sector of the sky of Aquarius, and this dictates a new 2.5-year journey that we are undertaking. Saturn enters Aquarius until July 2020. At that point, it goes retrograde back into Capricorn, and then it'll enter for its 2.5-year stay in December of 2020. It pressurizes this sector of our personal chart and forces us to do the work to inhabit new skills. And the beginning part of a Saturn transit often can be very humbling because it's meant to show you how far you have to go. But by the end, just like how you did with the Saturn and Capricorn area of your chart, by the end you have built discipline, work ethic, and perhaps will receive recognition. So we put in the work, so at the end of the transit, we get rewarded, because Saturn is meant to teach us discipline. It's meant to get us into line and really firm up our vision, our work ethic, or wherever it's touching our chart. So I'll go through sign by sign to let you know where this emphasis is occurring within your chart. You're welcome to go to your timestamp. They're available below. Listen for your rising and for your sun, to a lesser degree sun, but really listen to your rising, but also see sun, because I've noticed that even though solar houses, not everybody uses them, in my personal life, I typically really feel both influences. So worth a try listening to both. Aries risings, as always, let's start with you. So Saturn will be putting its pressure on your 11th house of hopes, dreams, and friendship. And this could put a lot of pressure around the real relationship. So I've noticed some Aries risings, maybe they move away from their friends. There's a little bit of isolation or detachment. Or you could just look around at your immediate, colleagues or community and just feel like, I don't really resonate with this group of people. Or it could feel like more work, Saturn is work, to kind of sustain those relationships. You also could be feeling the pressure in terms of hopes and dreams, because 11th house is like kind of the future house. So you might be feeling, okay, I've wanted to be a painter forever. I'm 27, and how am I gonna make this happen? How am I gonna turn that dream, that kind of future thing that I just always said would be, and make it into existence? So you could be feeling a lot of pressure, like, I've gotta make this happen, like the time is now. Other manifestations, you could start surrounding yourself with people who are older or a little bit more serious. Saturn influence in your friend group. So, maybe you kind of detach from the group of friends that weren't super serving you and start spending time, you want to be a painter in this example, with, these older kind of mentors of people who are really successful in the painting industry, or who, inspire more discipline from you rather than, partying every Friday night. Now you're around people who want to paint with you and kind of want you to put in that work. So those are some manifestations of where you'll be putting in the emphasis. My Saturn advice is, not every relationship needs to go. Saturn does kind of put this kind of isolating feeling on the house that it transits, but do the work, because Saturn rules work, to sustain relationships. So even if you move, consciously texting people, the individuals that you really want to keep in your life. And this is also a really lovely time to put in the work towards those dreams. It's a successful, thriving art career isn't just going to be handed to you. You have to put in the work, make sacrifices. Taurus rising, Saturn is moving through your 10th house of career, public persona, and reputation. So typically at the beginning of this transit, you could be feeling a lot of pressure. So perhaps you got a promotion and all of a sudden you're getting way more asked of you than you were before. Or maybe you feel like you're working 10 times harder and not getting any of the prestige. Either way, it can feel like a pressure cooker in terms of your public persona. So you could be, working towards that promotion or wanting to set up your own business, or, working towards launching your own, consulting firm, whatever it is. Expect to work 3 times as hard in career, even as you were before. You're really being asked to allow your daily routine and your discipline to dictate where you want to go in a public realm. So think, What do I want my legacy to be? What do I want people to remember about me? And this is the time to kind of let the allure of those visions go and be really fixated upon putting in the work and the effort to make it happen. Other manifestations could be you could get a new supervisor who puts way more pressure on you and is way more intense. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this is like a lot of pressure on me. Or you could, you could have just graduated college and now there's this immense pressure on you. Like you've got to get a job, you've got to succeed, and you feel like you have to have it all figured out. My advice for you Taurus risings, you don't need to have it all figured out. Saturn rewards effort and rewards time. So no matter what you do in this 2.5 period, there will be times when you want to give up. I'm just going to be totally point blank honest. Saturn is a very, very tough energy to deal with. Keep working. By the end of this, your career can be in a place that is so beyond your even wildest dreams or expectations of where you could be. And that is a result of you putting in the effort day in and day out. Gemini rising, your Saturn is transiting your 9th house. It's not your Saturn, it's all of us Saturn, but it is working with you though, Gemini risings, and for any other planets that you have in Gemini, as it is making a trine aspect. So it is kind of more collaborative and you can really create things that are built to last and really work with you. And the lessons will probably come a little bit more smoother rather than rough as it would during like a square. But that's coming. Wait till Saturn enters Pisces in 2.5 years. But, let's not get there yet. So with Saturn in 9th house, you could have some pressure around higher education. Maybe this is the time that you decide to go back and get your master's. And all of a sudden, your daily reality has to be dedicated towards sourcing and acquiring this wisdom or this learning process. So it's putting the pressure on what you know and what you're here to learn. It also could put some pressure around, spirituality, or you could go to a more, Saturn is very, structural. So you could decide, I really want to dive more into religion. Maybe I'll try a church or, something that's kind of structured, or I'll to go into this Bible study, or, I'll join this, Buddhist retreat. There's kind of some effort that you're being asked to put in to these realms, because 9th house is where we expand, whether it's spiritually, whether it's like traveling, whether it's acquiring wisdom. There's some effort being placed around like allowing yourself to put the work into what you believe. So if you want to dive more into your spirituality, if you want to get a master's, if you want to move abroad or travel, this is all a possibility in the next 2.5 years till 2023, but it wants you to put in the work. So if you do travel, make sure all of your travel documentation is airtight. Double check on all of your visas. Make sure the legal aspects of it are all good, because Saturn doesn't mess around. You got to do things by the books. Cancer rising, Saturn here is putting pressure on your 8th house of shared resources. So you could be feeling a little stressed out in terms of the support that you receive from other people. So it could be that your spouse took a pay cut or lost their job, and suddenly that, financial support that they were offering to you is not as much. Or, maybe your parents cut you off and now that support that you received isn't coming as much. Or there could be some pressure around intimacy or feeling like you're able to open up. You could feel like you need to retreat back into your shell, Cancer rising, because you feel like there's this feeling of I've really got to be protected. But you're being asked to put an energy towards these things. So if there is kind of how I experienced Saturn transits, in the beginning there's a lot of sense of limitation. So it might be, partner loses their income, or maybe a business partner, decides to stop investing, or you stop receiving investments in your ideas. The beginning is the limitation. Then after that, Saturn gives you this opportunity to work towards it. So maybe, if your spouse loses your job, maybe you have to hold down the fort, and then you kind of build with them something that you can both kind of support one another. So it could kind of even out the scales. Or maybe your parents stop supporting you, and then you by the end are able to support them. So it's kind of forcing you a little bit, Cancer risings. And I know you've been doing the work on this because Saturn was in your 7th house and North Node was going into your sign on, being more independent, but also learning how to merge and connect with people. So the beginning, you might feel a little bit like it's not safe. And by the end, you'll feel this we are stronger when we are together. And that inherently begins when, you realize your own strength. And then by the end of the transit, you'll be like, but what I can create with you, whether it's my business partner or my spouse, is stronger and better than what it was by myself. 8th house is also death. Don't want to scare anybody. I like to think of 8th house as like the house of merging, right? So it's like how we merge finances, shared resources, how we merge with the divine, death, how we merge bodies, intimacy, and sex. So with it being the house of death, there could be a lot of pressure on yourself or like a lot of fear around death. You could have to process, not putting any fear, but maybe you're processing, some grief or something of the sort, having to work with this kind of understanding that life is about more than just life. It's also, the darkness and death and things like that, and kind of working your mind around that, around sex and intimacy, although there is some debate around which house truly governs intimacy and sex. There could be some pressure around, being able to be intimate or to share yourself in that way. And by the end, you're meant to really solidify that area of life and to feel safe, because for Cancer rising, it is a acute need for you to feel safe. Leo rising, Saturn is transiting your 7th house of one-to-one relationships, other people. So with this pressure being around other people, anything that is not built to last will crumble away. So if you have a relationship that is built on shaky foundation where, it's not very serious, it'll likely not survive the length of this transit. Or you could have a relationship that's, more light at the beginning, but then it kind of gets pressured in. And if it's built to last, you will create a more solid, a more stable union. You might be more attracted to people who are older, with it being Saturn, or more kind of established, more mature. That's just kind of what you're into. Because in terms of other people, this is not an energy where you're just like down to like date and just like have fun. You're like, no, I'm trying to find my husband. I'm trying to find my business partner, whatever it is. You're really having sky high expectations for other people, as you should, Leo rising. So ensure that the people that you spend time with, you actually can see building a future with, as Saturn does rule time, and you want to build with this individual. So it's going to create a lot of pressure around one-to-one relationships. You could experience, especially at the beginning of this transit, that you feel very limited in your relationship, or you feel like it's just not fun. You guys just have so much pressure and so much stress placed upon you that you're not able to like really get back to that relationship, that fun relationship that you had before. Stay with it. Saturn is asking you to put in the work to sustaining one-to-one relationships, realizing that relationships aren't just about, having fun together. It's about holding one another down, even when times are good and even when times are bad. So put in the effort. There will be a little bit of restriction around relationships, but by the end, your relationships will be really built on this rock solid foundation. And if they don't, it just simply means that that person was not built to last, and Saturn did the work for you by, escorting them out of your life. Virgo rising, Saturn is transiting your 6th house of health, service, and day-to-day. Now, Virgo risings, you all are pretty discerning already, but Saturn here is making you be even more regimented about your daily reality and your daily routines. It is asking you to put in the work day to day towards what you want to build and maintain. You want health? Well, a lot of that comes down to whether or not you exercise every day. You want sparkly teeth. That comes down to whether or not you brush your teeth every day. Those little micro decisions you make day to day really impact the macro. So with Saturn in your 6th house, you could find that you're busier than ever before, that your daily reality, you just feel this sense of kind of like heaviness and responsibility on you. It's teaching you responsibility. It's teaching you how to maintain the aspects within your life. You could find a lot more pressure at work, as 6th house is the actual act of working. You could have a superior over you who's putting a lot of pressure on you. You could have a lot of kind of stress around your small animals or your pets, or you could decide to get a pet and have to put in all, this work and this effort towards sustaining that pet's life. With health, if anything comes up, I want you to be very disciplined about making sure that you go to the doctor, do your due diligence to get that remedied, because Saturn wants you to be diligent. It doesn't reward you when you cut corners or ignore or try to escape. This can be detrimental health-wise, but it doesn't have to be. Just ensure if you feel something, if you notice something, you seek professional help right away. Libra rising. Saturn is transiting your 5th house, and you should know that as a Libra rising, Aquarius is making a nice trine aspect to you, so Saturn is more likely to work with you in these 2.5 years in building something in the affairs of your 5th house. So, 5th house, it governs partying, entertainment, casual dating, and children. I'll name some manifestations of where you could feel Saturn's influence. So Saturn here, it kind of pressurizes your ability to, have fun and just be, a little reckless. It could feel like your old activities just don't really strike you the same way. You're just not as interested in them. You could find that partying every weekend, it's not really filling you up the way it used to. Or you could have hobbies that you're like, this just isn't as fun. I've seen this often, that sometimes you can transform a hobby that you have into something that is work. So, you write every day, then you find this website that'll pay you for your articles. And then now it used to be that you just wrote and that was like your happy place. And now it's like, kind of has this energy of work. So it kind of sucks a little bit of the fun out of it, but you can really build something that you love to do and also turn it into something, that's built to last, work-wise, creative-wise. It could be asking you, 5th house rules art and creation. It could be asking you, oh, so you are a photographer? Well, grab your camera and go out and do it every day. It's like asking you to put in the work to bring that creative goal to fruition or to bring it to life. So put in the effort. Take your creative goals seriously. If an opportunity comes up to monetize your hobby, this would be a beautiful opportunity to make it happen. Be mindful if you do not wish to have a child, as Saturn entering the 5th house, it can be enhanced responsibility as a parent, so you could conceive, or maybe with, if you already have children, you could feel a lot of pressure around your children. Maybe you have to send them to college, or maybe, they are going through something and you have to be really way more present as a parent and give them way more time. So Scorpio rising, Saturn is transiting your 4th house of home, family, and emotional state. So Scorpio, Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius is squaring whatever you have in Scorpio. So this isn't the time to be reckless or anything of the nature, because Saturn is having an argument with your Scorpionic planets. So it's really a time to lie low, walk the line, don't cause any, unnecessary fuss. With it transiting your 4th house, typically at the beginning of this transit, it'll feel very limiting and very kind of isolating. With it being emotional state, you might just feel a little bit apathetic, a little bit depressed. It could be hard on your kind of emotional state. You could move away from family and feel very isolated and detached. You could have pressure in your family relationships where you feel like you're not safe in, approaching them honestly and, communicating with them. How I experienced this when this happened in my chart is, oh my gosh, your physical home. I could not get it together this year. Like, it was like we had a leak and then we had this break and then this break. It felt at the time, I was like, what else can break? But Saturn, it's teaching you. It's always teaching you. So with it in the 4th house, if you do have a home, it could be teaching you how to be a homeowner, what it means to maintain a home, or maybe you become a landlord and you need to maintain somebody else's home. It's trying to equip you with a strong sense of responsibility. As I mentioned, family relationships could be strained, or you could need to step in and take a more responsible role. Maybe take care of your parents or take care of someone who is elderly in your family, having to step up and be more responsible. By the end of this transit, you will feel a really solid sense of self, because the beginning, as I mentioned, it's very isolating, and by the end you'll have this feeling of like, okay, I know I've got me and I can build myself back up. And then it's kind of by the end of it, so 2023 Scorpio risings, you'll really feel this, well, I can handle anything, because once you get that kind of home base on point, you can really take anything else that occurs in stride. Sagittarius rising, Saturn in Aquarius is putting pressure on your 3rd house. So you could find that you're just not as into, small talk. You could find that you're not you're not feeling super out there in terms of communication. You could also find with third house governing skills that you're really, really prompted and encouraged to go out and learn some new skills or learn something very hands-on. Third house is very practical skills. So you could learn how to, fix your car or learn how to do things around the house. There's really kind of this pressure on your mental space to get you to a space where you feel like you can handle life, whatever it is that throws at you. You could, learn how to do something with your hands or have some pressure around your relationships with your neighbors or people who are around you. Or you could step up and be, more involved in your neighborhood politics, like as a mayor or something, or want to, why is our neighborhood so trash? Let's organize a trash cleanup day. There's kind of a responsibility that you have to kind of undertake in your immediate surroundings. So you might be like kind of less interested in just kind of willy-nilly things for the sake and really want to make a difference, whether it's in your own kind of toolbox of skills or in your neighborhood around you. Third house is also siblings. So you could find that you have a more responsible role as a sibling. So maybe, one of your brothers or sisters gets a surgery and you have to be for them, or they have a child and you have to be more present for them. Or you could find that your relationships with them get a little strained. Capricorn rising, Saturn is transiting your second house of money that you earn and resources, possessions. So with Saturn in the second house, there's going to be a feeling that there's not as much abundance or is not as much money in your life. And this could be either, you lose a stream of income, or it could be that you kind of fixate your goals. Like, I want to buy a house, I want to move. You fixate your goal-oriented mind on something where you realize, okay, if I want this to happen, I got to be so regimented about my finances. So then as a result, it makes you feel like you don't have as much. This is such a beautiful opportunity for you to budget, for you to restructure your money and give every single dollar a job. Like this one goes to investments, this one is for my house, things like that. Saturn will punish you, as it is karmic, if you just are really willy-nilly about your finances. And Capricorn rising, you guys are pretty structured. So especially with this being your ruling planet, you're going to really feel this influence of needing to take accountability and responsibility over your finances. If you do purchase things, make sure they are built to last, very, classic and timeless. With Saturn transiting this area, rather than anything that's like, cheap or just falls apart. Think long-term rather than short-term. There could also be an emphasis to have to work much harder at your actual job in order to make more money and make more abundance. But if you put in the work, if you budget, if you strategize, you'll be in a vastly different financial reality by the end than you were at the beginning. Aquarius rising. Saturn is transiting your first house. So with Saturn on your energy, it is so essential to not take unnecessary risks, to not, break the law, to not try to skip corners or lie about things, because it will catch up to you. So this is really a time to be very cognizant about the actions that you take and how they contribute or can be to detriment to your long-term goals. So with Saturn in the first house, you could feel this enhanced responsibility within your life. This could be a time where you feel like you have to turn into an adult, or you just have way more responsibility to those around you. So maybe, you enter a more serious relationship and you have to be more like responsible for them, or maybe your family is going through something, you have to be more responsible for them, or maybe you get a promotion at work and you have to be really responsible. This is a time when you're going to feel like your schedule has never been more busy and you've never been so like stressed out and have just pressure cooker on you. This is really the time to know that you can do it. With Saturn in the first house, it also could feel like you have to learn how to be independent and how to get yourself. It's also a really strong time if there's anything physical that you would like to, work towards. So you want more like definition in your arms, or you want to lose weight. Saturn is here to give you discipline and regimented to get you to where you want to go. It's just super essential to use work ethic, no, detox teas or anything silly. Go by what works and think long term. Saturn is the planet of time, so it will help you in making changes that will be with you for the rest of your life. Pisces rising, Saturn is transiting your 12th house. And with Saturn here, there can be, you guys like to be alone, at least Pisces rising, I know. But there can be a feeling of like these kind of being alone in this realm of fantasy and escapism, it's just not as soothing as before. You could just feel a little limited, not being able to, spend any time alone. Or you could really have to take a hard look at the escapism tendencies that you do have, looking at like, substances that you use to cope or use to escape or to go into this kind of fantasy realm. Life will kind of pressure you to be a lot more present. You could have a lot more people around you who are struggling, so you kind of have to show up for them, and you're not really able to kind of float into your dream world that you want to be. It could also be a time that you have to put in a lot of effort towards, spirituality, towards lucid dreaming or things like that, in order to build yourself up. But it's funny because with Saturn in the 12th house, it's like you want to be alone, but you feel like you can't. Maybe you move in with someone and you have to, they're there all the time, but you feel like you can't. So be regimented about your spiritual practices. Be mindful about what you use to escape. Escape in positive ways like art and spirituality, rather than more negative, detrimental things like escapism tactics, alcohol, drugs, things like that. Try to veer away. As Saturn is a karmic planet, it can have really detrimental effects. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know what you learned from the Saturn and Capricorn transit and what you are looking forward to and fearing for your Saturn Aquarius transit. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what astro videos you want to see from me. And until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay cosmic.